This is NPC News, here to serve the elitist agenda and subvert public interest. Sowing division is our mandate and misinformation our side hustle. Prepare for your state-sanctioned dosage of propaganda.
Contact established.
I'll take it from here. Herald the return of the Coroner's report, the first of 2022.
So this is the future.
Providing peace of mind in your darkest hour, and entertainment news for the month of February. Your trusted news that will refuse to skimp on all the gory details. Today's lead correspondent, Inkarnate, will play your bearer of bad news. We go now to our Shadowcaster, for a sign of things to come. If you're a frequent customer of Samsung the way that I am, you purchase everything from your TV and 4K players, from tablets and cell phones from the trusted brand. If you're already using Jabra headsets as your preferred audio tech provider, like I plan to very soon, then you know they provide a whole host of listening electronics ranging from workout earbuds, Bluetooth music headsets, and office hearing devices. If you use the link in the description for either Samsung or Jabra purchases, it'll help the channel out tremendously. With the promotional considerations accounted for, it's on with the show.
Once again, this is rumor control. Here are the facts.
What say we kick things off with a banger? I could go on for hours of my admiration for the mythos that American McGee crafted, translating Lewis Carroll's classic books into their proper horror depiction, and I will. I could speak on how the original title and sequel are fitting for a Let's Play livestream, and I intend. I could sing this announcement's praises off-key and in a shrill voice that will make even banshees weep. Don't count on it. Instead of all that, any of that, I'd rather explain my sheer delight over knowledge that we have our hands not just on a return to proper dark fantasy, but one on the small screen. I've been appreciative over an excuse to resume regular TV watching with the returns of Chucky and Dexter to weekly episodes, and with Amazon having disappointed me with Wheel of Time, and the rest of planet Earth with the Rings of Power, the timing couldn't be better for horror's twisted sister to fill that Game of Thrones void in the land of make-believe. I've spoken at length how dark fantasy is the gateway genre of horror, able to attract audiences at a young age that will potentially grow to lifelong horror fans. Every 11 years like clockwork, we've gotten an addition to this universe, so this one's got my full attention. If we couldn't get that Wes Craven silver screen adaptation 21 years ago, yeah, I didn't know about that either. If we can't get a third entry to complete the gaming trilogy, I'm ecstatic that we can see a continuation of McGee's world where we're free to go as mad as a hatter in this land of wonder. Now that we've started our roundup with a strong opener, how's about a fumble? With those alien video shorts that were exclusive to IGN because now the shill website is a streaming service or something, was there any excitement whatsoever surrounding them? And they were meant to celebrate the franchise's 40-year anniversary. I feel a great swell of pity for anyone that's actually looking forward to this program. Not only is Ridley Scott going to be intimately involved in this project, but it's said to serve as a modern parable about corporate greed.
Boring.
I'm not going to say that the problems facing this series started with Prometheus, although there was a reason why the franchise veered away from that pompous self-indulgence, but let's be fair. The movies saw 2 failed crossovers and 2 bad sequels before Ridley Scott proved that he no longer had what it took to save this series. Folks, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a theme to these stories, Because if you just throw face-grinding spiders and biomechanical horrors on screen without story or subtext, all you get is Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom in space. Having said that, with the focus on the threat of greedy corporations, this series is brought to you by your friends at the Disney Corporation, mind you. Now you're just recycling material that the movies explored in the first sequel 36 years ago. With word of income inequality on the Alien front, and with mention that the Predator prequel will prioritize female empowerment over repairing the damage done to the star of the show, what's in store for both franchises are certainly dark days ahead in the worst ways possible. And the buzzkills just keep on rolling. If we're keeping with the football theme, it's safe to call this stunt casting a Hail Mary. I don't have any problem whatsoever with stars from outside horror venturing within. But therein lies the problem, because Ryan Gosling ain't no star. After all, how can he be a star when he is more akin to a black hole of charisma? And speaking of the vacuum of outer space, anyone ever discover what cavity that box office for Blade Runner 2049 sunk into? You know, that launching platform that cast Gosling as the heir apparent to the film that a past legend made famous? If you need a more clear-cut example of where I'm headed, do you remember what happened to the last up-and-comer that Hollywood tried to pawn off a franchise to that Harrison Ford made famous? Yeah, it never ceases to amaze how those within the horror genre, whether studios and directors or websites and YouTubers, settle for Hollywood's sloppy seconds and treat it like a steak dinner. Fans the world over hate J.J. Abrams, but hey, he's making a zombie movie that no one will remember. M. Night Shyamalan is a known has-been, but he's warmly embraced as though he wasn't a second-rate one-trick pony because he had an overrated comeback that was short-lived any damn way. Paul W.S. Anderson cannot even find work outside of low-rent video game movies, but for some reason his Resident Evil con jobs drew a meager fan base when 6 films of that raw sewage wasn't good enough to draw flies. And now we've got this underwear model in our midst. It's in no way a good look for the genre when we're accepting pop culture's backwash with open arms. This is what I refer to as the Nick Cage effect. A past their prime washout who's treated to a dunce cap by the mainstream, but horror films and fans would hand him a crown. And speaking of, now he's set to play Dracula. Nicolas Cage is set to star as horror's greatest villain. My hope is that this will be the role where all the alleged nuance he would have brought to the Superman role and all the madcap brilliance that this thespian has displayed with overrated junk like Mandy, that this fraud can be exposed as a bad joke that hasn't been funny in 16 years.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Oh, my eyes! My eyes! Ah! Ah!
Speaking of the last decade and a half, why can't these monsters catch a break? I've made my feelings on the Evil Dead license well known, especially its recent entries. That excellent reboot was not well received by the fans, so when the brand opted to reverse course back to familiar territory with the show, the same lacking support was shown, resulting in that program's cancellation. I don't care in the slightest about the upcoming game, but despite as much damage as further entries are tarnishing its legacy, I do genuinely hope that the fans enjoy this 5th film. however many of them are left. So, this is how mediocrity is received, with thunderous applause.
Let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel. Ah! Ah!
False start. You're screwing up already. So, not only was Paramount giddy as a schoolgirl to reward themselves for churning out a bankable dung heap of a sequel that raised the middle finger to its fan base, but they're doing so in record time to release their next cash grab 1 year from now. Foregoing for the moment how exaggerated franchises like Saw and Paranormal Activity were run into the ground about as fast as Jada Pinkett's career and about as hard as Jada Pinkett herself around her son's friends, at the mercy of meeting tight deadlines like annual releases, what heights can the next year of Scream's forgery possibly reach when this year was so utterly banal? Add to that the fact that Part 6 needs to be scripted, filmed, and released in time for 2023's Kung Flu variant that the press is already concocting ways to embellish. That's not a formula for success, that's a recipe for disaster.
I move for a vote of no confidence.
Speaking of brain-dead slasher trash, we're taking this edition into overtime. For our top story, Netflix bagged themselves a winner of a draft pick, or so they think. For the record, not only is this the third film in the franchise to bear the name Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but in the last 19 years, they have now made more remakes, prequels, and 3D gimmicks than the mainline sequels of the first 2 decades. With a timeline more bloated than 50 Cent at the halftime show.
Go, 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 shorty, it's your birthday.
How much of a fan base does this have left? But that ain't even the worst part. I mean, just look at the setup. Geriatric legacy character from the first film. Cringy self-aware humor. Naming this latest money-grubbing scheme after the original. The saving grace to this self-indulgence is that, with Halloween Kills cluing fans into the rudderless direction that franchise is heading in, and Scream outwardly insulting its core audience, now these landfill assembly line films aren't just releasing one after the other, but starting to line up close enough for fans to begin connecting the dots. This film's handlers probably thought that, with the 2018 vandalization of Halloween, that the time was now, not only to resurrect Leatherface, but model his resurgence after the recent Michael Myers formula. How precious little they understood that, with last year's King of the Slashers tanking in its reception among fans and critics alike, that sinking ship is now poised to take down Texas Chainsaw Massacre with it. I'm afraid there's no banquet for them to feast on, just desserts. But fret thee not, I'm not letting that nosedive spoil the fun. We ain't going out on that note. Fortunately, we've got a secret weapon up our sleeves, a trick play for an occasion just like this. With the debut of the latest Texas Chainsaw Massacre set for Friday, February 18th, 2022, consider your release date intercepted. Coming out of nowhere to steal the thunder and make an impact, launching in theaters the same day is The Cursed. If I wasn't already bought into what is being called a reimagining of the werewolf legend with its 19th century gothic setting, the trailer's suggestion of a witch and imagery of a haunting scarecrow had me sold and my expectations through the roof on this one. It's looking like 2016's The Witch meets 2021's Antlers. So, with that high bar raised, here's hoping The Cursed can knock it right in between the uprights. I ain't a betting man, but if it's a coin toss between some movie magic and Netflix and Kill, I know who my money's on. Remember, sports fans, no news is good news. Rejoice, horror fans. I'm Inkarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.